and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could remain standing, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Lou Raza. As many of you might be aware, he passed away this past week. He was a longtime member of the Watertown Police Department as well as on the town council. May be seated. Roll call, please.
Jonathan Ramsey.
Here.
Marianne Rosa.
Here.
Ken Demers.
Here.
Robert DeSena.
Here.
Anthony DeBona.
Here.
Gary Lafferty.
Here.
Robert Vitalik.
Here.
Denise Russ.
Here.
And Rachel Ryan.
Here.
Thank you. Next is public comment. If anyone would like to address the town council, please come up and state your name and address.
Al Mickle, 95 Woodbine Avenue, Oakville. I'm going to mention something I think everybody in the room knows, but the budget referendum is tomorrow. And I would urge everybody to approve both the town and the school sides of the budget. I've received an electronic copy of the budget, and a flaw that I've pointed out has been corrected. There's no reason not to vote for this. As a matter of fact, no one on the town council voted against this budget. Now, the architect for the police station and the senior center design will come to the town council for their input and answers to any question they might have. It is my request for public participation. If not at the town meeting, I would like to be able at any other venue where this topic will be discussed. The public should have an opportunity to discuss the plans for these projects before we proceed to the next phase when the costs are determined. If an open, honest discussion is not allowed, it would be hard for the public to vote for such a huge bonding package. I would also suggest that everybody reread the Plan of Conservation and Development. It's on the town website. In particular, read the survey section and section 5 on services and amenities. It talks about what's needed for the town, including the roads, the senior center, the public works garage. It also mentioned that the police station is adequate, but the police chief has clearly demonstrated that this is no longer a safe and adequate in today's environment. The method, timing, and scope of the needs, the referendum, needs to be prioritized and cost justified. Maybe the size and the amount could be spread out spread out, so the overly huge amount does not to be done all at once. We should be cautious and careful. Let's not rush into this and regret it at our leisure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Do you have a motion for the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of May 2nd, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the budget public hearing of April 26th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a correction. I was listed as Rachel Russ instead of Rachel Ryan.
Any other corrections? All in favor as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
Make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of April 26th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Chairman's report. As Al mentioned, we have our town referendum tomorrow, so hopefully everyone gets out and votes tomorrow. I also want to just mention again, related to Lou Raza, the blood drive that's being held here at the Town Council on June 25th, 2022. If you're interested, got a couple extra flyers here. Additionally, we received a letter from Cynthia Tune or Ton of 1362 Litchfield Road regarding her recommendations on the ARPA funds. And I'll place that into the minutes for the record. And that is it. Town Manager? Microphone, please. Microphone.
Are we good? Okay. I'd like to bring you up to date on our total COVID cases for town of Watertown, where we've had experienced 81 COVID cases over the last 2 weeks with 450 tests. It's brought us up to a positivity rate of 13.5%. We're still below the average, but we are continuing to uptick. And that, of course, does not take any consideration into the home testing. These are just PCR tests that are being validated through a doctor's office. There's no ordinance update, noise ordinance update. I just want to bring you up to date on some of the work that we've been doing in the background. We're spending a lot of time creating processes and procedures. We're going through our forms, checklists. We're creating checklists so that we can identify if, as we're moving through and doing proper procedures, we could identify if there's a problem and we could fix it moving forward. We're also going over our employee handbook. We're making some updates, inclusive language we're adding to it, and just fixing some of the typographical errors that were in the handbook to begin with. We're also completing an onboarding process. We're taking what we currently have and we're improving it, and again, applying forms and lists so that we can continue to make sure we hit every topic. I am going to change the FOIA procedure for the town. We're no longer going to accept general emails for FOIA requests. We're going to create a form. We're going to put it on our website. It'll be easily identifiable. We're going to create a special email address so that the general public can go on our website, click on a link. They can either print it, fill out their FOIA request, mail it to the town, or directly mail it to us so that we can numerically track what's being requested from the town. If an individual wants to walk in and view records, they'll still be allowed to do that, but we'd like to get a procedure in place so we can monitor our FOIA requests. Wilson Street Bridge, there's no further update. We do have good news on our Guernsey Town Road project. We've been authorized to advertise for this project, and if you remember, it's a construction project provide for reconstruction of Guernsey Town Road, approximately 300 feet north of Eastwood Hall Road, northerly to approximately 150 feet north of Crestview Drive. It's a little over 1.5 miles. Total distance is 3,400 feet, and then we would be reconstructing the intersection with West Road. This project is completely funded through LoCIP money, and we were approved up to $3,998,000. So that'll be going out to bid very shortly. Our Steelbrook Greenway, our scope of work has been reviewed by the state, and they have provided some feedback to us. We're going to take that scope of work, send it back to committee, and then we'll be working with the state again and Sampson and Weston to get some figures so we can put this out to bid as well. Naugatuck River Greenway, there's no additional update. We are currently negotiating, as I've said in the past, highway police and supervisors. They were all moving well as could be expected. Just a reminder, our tabletop exercise will be conducted next May 24th. The state is putting on a hurricane emergency operations tabletop exercise. We will take part of it. We'll open up our EOC for that day. We'll have all our department heads involved. I've asked department heads to maybe include a layer down so that we could get some experience spread out amongst all our leadership in town. And then just another reminder for Memorial Day, the parade is on May 30th, 10 a.m. We'll be heading north. If you are going to march in the parade or you would like a golf cart, please let me know tomorrow or by the end of the day tomorrow so that we could get those arranged. And that is all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is subcommittee reports. I just want to start with the ARPA committee. They met this past week. We had a survey that went out to the town, mostly on social media, with different topics related to how we might use the funds. There was also a spot in that survey to write in comments. The only thing I guess I want to add to that is on the written in comments, there was a lot that dealt with roads, which we know is an ongoing concern in town. And we'll be dealing with motions related to that recommendation under 9B of new business. Any other subcommittee reports? Rob? Microphone.
The Finance Committee.
Can you turn the microphone on? Sorry.
As a member of the Finance Committee, I just want to ask the town manager to look into something. I've learned recently that there's possibly money that's available through the state of Connecticut to pay our emergency manager through the state of Connecticut funds instead of the Watertown funds. And if somebody could look into that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, I could do that. Currently, we are receiving some funds for that position, and there are additional funds available that we can take advantage of. So I'll look into that and report back next council meeting.
Any other subcommittees?
We did have a meeting on the 9th. I have no report prepared, but I do see Mr. Spina here, who I'm sure is going to have some comments on under new business under item F.
Okay. All set. Moving on to new business.
Rebranding, you got to do the presentation first.
Are they doing that before? Yeah.
Oh, good evening. My name is Joe Sechrist. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for the town. I think most of you knew that. Joe McGrail is unable to be here tonight. He's under the weather, but he has been tested. It is not COVID. It's just a allergic kind of cold. So we are counting on him being here tonight, but he can't make it. So the presentation we're going to talk with tonight, and I'll introduce Courtney here in just a moment. The Economic Development Commission and I checked obviously with Mark. We feel it's time to refresh the image, the brand image of Watertown. That it's never been done that I know of. And the town seal, of course, was done almost 30 years ago. What we did before we came to you folks to make sure that we got some feedback about this is we've set up 3 focus groups, one of which was the board of directors of the Watertown Oakville Chamber of Commerce. We made the presentation you're going to see tonight to them to get their feedback about it. We also presented it to the local Rotary Club and also to the Lions Club to get feedback from business community, business leaders, and others. We also checked with them about a choice of a tagline. You're going to see a suggestion here in a moment for a tagline that is just a motto for the town. We ran through 3, let's grow together, a place to call home, and a gateway to Litchfield County. Most of the people did not care for anything except a place to call home. So. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at some point later if you have them. We've also suggested, you'll see in here, some minor cosmetic changes to the town seal. That's something that you can approve or not approve. That's really sort of up to you. The current one is only available with black and white and is about 30 years old. And we thought, since this is a color world, we might be able to move into something with a little bit of color. And that will be explained to you in some detail in the presentation. We will make free of charge, if you folks approve what we want to do, we'll make free of charge all the marketing materials that you're going to see examples of in this presentation, free of charge to any of the merchants in town or anyone thinking about coming to town, so they can coordinate it with their own advertising. And that will be part of a planned rollout that we have for all of this if you guys approve. We'll probably make available some decals of either the new town seal or the logo or whatever we decide to do with your permission. to make available to the merchants to put in their store windows, and for the residents to put on their automobiles if they would choose to do so, representing again the town of Watertown and what we call a place to call home. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney Hendrickson, who's sitting here. She is the Vice President of Partnerships for Advanced CT. Because I am a one-man band, and I'm half of a one-man band because I'm part-time, we realized we needed some professional help to help us with this presentation and through this whole process. And we coordinated and worked with Advanced CT. So Courtney, if you'd like to run us through this presentation.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for having us. Just quickly, Advanced CT is the private sector arm of the public-private economic development function for Connecticut. We work closely with the State Department of Economic Development, but we are fully independent. We rely on our partnerships with all 169 municipalities to retain and expand existing Connecticut businesses and attract new businesses in the form of jobs and investment all over the state. We have been working with Watertown since 2019. You may remember that we completed a market feasibility study focused on the Sealy property in Oakville, which examined demographics, economic trends, housing demand, and market potential for that site. And since 2021, we have shifted our focus to this marketing project, and we're very excited to show you our progress this evening. So looking at the presentation here on the screen, we did, as Joe mentioned, get quite a bit of market feedback. We really would like to emphasize that we worked closely with the town, with the staff, and also with those business and civic organizations that Joe mentioned to really most accurately reflect who Watertown is and what you all are about.
I think next slide, please.
Thanks, Joe. And we understood that the current seal was done in the late 60s, but we really wanted to make sure that it retains the pieces that were part of the original design, really representing industry, which is represented by the smokestacks, farming, represented by the barn and the crop, family, represented by the smoking chimney, and community, represented by the church steeple. So you'll see some similarities in the new design as well. So this is the Watertown, a place to call home that Joe mentioned, and the tagline really reflects a place to raise the family, a place to grow the business, and a place to build your community. And we did get some really mostly universal feedback, positive feedback from the Rotary, the Chamber, and the Lions Club when we went to them. The artwork on the next slide is really putting it all together, and those components that I was talking about before, representing home and family, business and community, and then the backdrop suggests rural settings. So tracing the roots back to that town seal, like I said, and making sure that today's logo is in color, so we don't want to forget our history, but we also don't want to get stuck in the history was the thought there, but this really represents an evolution.
And I just had there that represents the same symbols that are on the current seal.
And this just breaks it down, so again, you see the specific parts that we did actually use iconic landmarks in Watertown specifically. Those certainly could be changed, those specifics, but again, we wanted to represent business, home and family, community, and the rural setting all together.
Can I just jump in there too? We got some feedback about the house, the Woodward house, and they said, well, can't you find a better looking house than that? Well, this is a characterization, and the reason we chose that is the history of the Woodward family. They left a huge foundation that has contributed not only the new addition to the library, but hundreds of thousands of dollars to local churches and communities. And the foundation is based only for primarily Watertown businesses. So that's why we chose the Woodward House. We could put any house that we want in there.
So then this slide just really brings it together, the artwork and the word mark to create the new logo. And you'll see as we go through a couple of different versions of it that are sort of a family of design and that can be used in different ways. So we aim for consistency, and to maximize the strength of any brand, it really should be used consistently across all channels and uses. So you might be doing maintenance truck doors, you might be doing print ads, you might be doing social media and website, banners, town stationery, and you want to have the same look and feel, even though the size is going to be different and sometimes the color. So you'll see in this next one that it is in 2 colors here, just to show that there are uses where full color may be cost prohibitive, you can still reflect the look and feel of the new design. So just a couple more examples of the uses. You can see on the next slide that you can see it on the maintenance truck, and you can also see it in town stationery. Just examples again. The next one would be marketing materials, so brochures, annual report, articles, advertisements, that kind of thing. You could use a look and feel like this. And here on social media, we use the W because it tends to be that icons are quite a bit smaller on social media. So we want to make sure it's in the same family, that look and feel is the same. But when photography is the main focus, like a lot of times we see in social media, we make sure that the logos are smaller. So, but we don't lose the detail there. That's why we use the W there. And then lastly, the street banners. The simplified badge shows different ways that you can do it, but they're much bigger, so you have more real estate to work with. And here are just a few examples of what it might look like. So really, we're not set in stone, but that was the look and feel that we came up with through the focus group work that we did with the staff and the civic and business organizations in town. And this is the local team, of course, who you all know, but we're always available at AdvanceAT to support as appropriate, to continue to support rollout in the community. And we just are very grateful that we were part of this exciting project, and we're happy to take questions and comments.
Yeah, I would just talk about the rollout. If you approve, if you like what you see tonight, we'd like to roll it out in a very reasonably formal way. We certainly start with a press conference to introduce the program. We would have a series of business receptions, either breakfasts or luncheons for the merchants, to introduce them to this and to also explain to them how they can use any of these marketing materials that they might like to use. Sorry about my voice, it's just part of being over 40, you know. We'd also probably do a series of booths at the Night Outs in Watertown and the town hall, the fall festival. We're also talking to this same group, the Boyer Group, who has proposed something that I think we will need, since again, I'm just one part-time person to roll this out. They have experience and they would like to help us with media management, meaning leveraging the media relationships in television, radio, print, digital, and trade publications for all of this, if it's all approved, the new look for Watertown. They will do the writing and the editing for local businesses. So if some of the local businesses want to use some property and they need us to help write for advertising copy, this firm can provide that for us too. And then they will manage all of our digital facets of the website, content, social media, including announcements, blogs, podcasts, video, and other digital. And then they will report and check in with us on a monthly basis to see how that is going. So there are some plans, some detailed plans to roll this out if this council approves it. So that's really all we have to have, and we'll entertain any question.
Yes. The benefit of my past, my past employment is I'm able to read body language pretty good, and I can't wait to hear what Ms. Rosa has to say. If we could go back to the color seal so we could look at that. So just to clarify a few things, I think Joe may have misspoke. We didn't imply that we would provide paper products to our community. but we would provide the social media for them to put it on their own. They would be paying for it. We do have some money put in our budget from last year, which is covering this project, and we did put other monies in a line item to help us continue to roll these things out as we move forward. Some of the feedback we got, specifically, a lot of people really liked the total picture, being that we're looking at Oakville with the Pin Shop, the Congressional Church, and of course Judd Farm, which pretty much anybody who's lived in town kind of can identify these. The Woodward House that's in the forward picture, we've had a lot of feedback. Some people just didn't like it, and then there were other people who liked it because it was representative of a lot of different types of houses in town, and you could kind of say, well, that kind of looks like my house, and that's what they liked about it. And then there was other people that said, who and what are the Woodwards? It wasn't something that really popped out to me. I had to look up to find out who they were as well. But once you do read about it, there is some importance to the home, and I don't know how I feel about it at this point, but I think the whole picture would be a very nice rollout for us. It kind of has that homey feel for Watertown, and the tagline, I think, as we work through it, a place to call home, really settled in with a lot of people. Our business people that we've represented in our focus groups really liked it because they felt it's important for them to be able to say, yeah, this is where I call my home. I may not live in Watertown, but my business is here. And same thing with our residents. Additionally to those 3 focus groups, we did show this to probably about 300 other individuals, where myself, Joe McGrail, and Joe Sechrist actually went out to different groups. I actually stood in the town clerk's office one day and just randomly bothered people as they walked in the building to just give input. And a lot of people liked it. So that's, other than that, Woodward House, I think, the whole picture itself, I think, is a nice update to our seal. And the tagline, I think, is a home run for us.
Before we do a motion, any comments, discussion?
We should have it after the motion.
Presentation. Yep. Rachel?
I'll move. We need the motion before discussion. Sure. I move to approve the redesign of the town of Watertown and the tagline to replace "Working for You" with a place called home.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Rachel? I'm sorry.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, I agree with other people about the Woodward House. I don't know if we want to go with more of a colonial-style house as opposed to a federal-style house. I mean, there's obviously so many beautiful houses in the historic district to choose from. I mean, I agree that the family history is there, but there's also like really major manufacturing, old, manufacturing from Waterbury that really started the town. So I think there's a lot of other places that we could start with. There's, the historic district publishes that book with the histories of all the houses in the historic district, and that could be a good place to do some investigation, and I'd be happy to look into that. I have a copy of the book at home. And I am definitely not an artist, but I don't know if there's anything that can be done about sort of the color of the windows. It's just so dark, and just the contrast just seems to be a little, it just doesn't look very inviting with the black windows. I don't know how else you could change that.
Through the chair. I'm all for progress regarding this rebranding. It's been since 1980, let's say. The reason the seal was the way it was back in 1980 is that was the town's tercentennial, 300 years of the town. And the seal came out then, and we're not in 1980, now we're in the millennial era. We're beyond that. And I'm all for movement towards the future, towards the advance. I don't think this brand, which unfortunately to me makes it look like the town is totally rural. And also the Pin Shop, granted, if you're going north into town from Point South, you see the Pin Shop. I tend to remember the Pin Shop went out of business in 1980. It turned into the current Pin Shop there is now. There may be other locations in town to encourage business, industry to come in. And for example, and the Woodward House also, that kind of threw me for a loop, because one, I don't know where the Woodward House is, unfortunately. May I ask where it is? How about all the houses in town, the federal-type houses that the counselor just mentioned, that type of building and place? That's the kind of houses that would encourage the new homeowners to come into town, to make it their home. And that would encourage more for cultural diversity into town. People coming from other areas, other towns. There's nothing there to signify Taft School either, which people tend to see coming into town, there's Taft School, nor on the Main Street. So I think it should be worked on a little more. And I don't like the idea of the house, personally.
I don't know where to start. I'm all for progress and updating, and I think it's a good thing. I think it was time that we needed to do it. I just don't think this does it. To me, the seal looks like something that, I don't mean to insult anyone, but it's something that maybe one of our grammar school children might have put together, like stick figures. It doesn't have the class or the impact that our other seal had. Maybe two colors would make it better, I don't know. But the average person in town, or the average person seeing Watertown seal on anything, has no idea who Woodward is, or the Woodward House, or even if they knew the name, they wouldn't know that that was their home. I just don't see the relevance to identifying one home or one particular thing to try and convey our whole community. I don't like it at all.
Anyone else? Yep.
I have to agree with the fellow council people. I'm not crazy about this. To me, it looks like an elementary school child put this together. And number two, a place to call home. You hear it so much on TV regarding nursing homes. And that's what came into my mind, a place to call home. I didn't think of Watertown. I thought of all those assisted living places that they advertise. And the cost to redo everything, stationery, every little itty bitty thing, to me, that's money wasted, because the only people that are going to see this seal is the people that come through town, because our vehicles don't leave Watertown. Very, very rarely they do to other towns, but no one's going to see this new seal. And personally, I kind of like the one on the wall. Thank you.
Through the chair, can I add a little comment here?
Sure.
I think that when we started this project, you know, for a lot of you who are new on the town council, back in the late 80s or maybe early 90s, there was a move to change the town seal, and there was a lot of pushback. So when we did the research to create this project, we went through all those notes and understood the significance of this particular seal. So we kind of walked through this gingerly. We didn't want to make this huge jump. So I think that could be some of the reason why we kind of did these small changes to kind of start moving forward. I can't disagree with you more that changing the seal would not create some type of excitement or energy for town. And the town lacks energy. That's part of our problem, is that we're Watertown. I mean, when I first took this job, one of the first questions I asked was, who were we? Who are we? And when you ask that question to somebody who's not ready for that question, they usually can't answer that question for Watertown. So to make this comment of a place to call home, and I never even thought of that, so I'm glad you brought that up, because it's important that some people may think that way. But out of all the people that we did show this to, not one person did mention that. So that's a little shocking to me that that thought came up, and we haven't heard that yet. I still think that we need to make the change. I think we need to change the energy of our town, and by doing a change in branding, we have the opportunity to go out and build that excitement with not only our residents and our business people, but our school system. And people are going to drive through our town, they're going to see the new seal, and it's going to stick out. That's classic, and I like it myself. I actually like working for you as well. But I think a place to call home is another way, bringing us down. I think we're going to have to maybe think about that tweak. As far as I certainly don't want people to think that we're a living facility on your way out. I think we're trying to get different excitement, not that kind of excitement. But thank you for those comments.
We have a motion before us to approve this. I think we ought to defeat the motion and work on it a little more.
Could I just, through the chair,
Sure.
make a quick comment? I do, for my job, I do a lot of traveling around the state of Connecticut, and this is what a lot of small towns are doing. They're bringing all these nice colors together and updating and putting them on their trucks, and that's where I see them. I think it's a great idea, but I do have to agree with some of the choices that were made in the actual content of the seal. But I think it's a great idea. I think it's nice and bright, and I think it should stay bright.
Anyone else? The only, I guess, question I have for the town council is regarding the new seal. Are the issues more with the specific buildings that are on there? Is it the color of the buildings? Keep in mind, the buildings are very similar to buildings that we have on the current seal. Is it just the overall kind of shape and design? Any, Herm? Microphone.
The manager could recall, he did mention from the early 80s to the late 80s into the 90s, the original seal was utilized, but then it was copied by the police department and fire department for their patches on their uniforms. And included on those patches were the former town hall that are long gone, the town hall lobby. This is the town hall. Maybe this would be a building showing progress being made. This building, the town center, that's just, thank you.
Great idea.
I would add, I agree with Ken, I do really like the colors, although it does look almost like a Google logo to me, so with the primary colors. But I'm thinking maybe not even pick specific buildings, but just like, again, it's maybe a generic colonial house, a generic farm, church. When I saw the option of the church, are other religious organizations going to feel left out if, their church isn't depicted, or synagogue, or mosque, or whatever else might be in town? So maybe something a little bit more just generic and religious in nature. I don't know. And it feels a little bit imbalanced in the artwork, and so maybe if we didn't go with the Judd Farm barn and just like a more traditional barn, it could be a little bit, I feel it needs to be a little bit more symmetrical. But I do like the idea, and I wouldn't necessarily want to keep the old seal now that I think about it, with the smoke coming out of the old smokestacks. I mean, that's like not very environmental or forward thinking. But I do really like the plant growing and the barn, that sort of more generic look from the old seal.
Through the chair. Just to comment one more time on Councilperson Russ's comment. We did consider about the stockpile of paper and, envelopes that we do have, and we did talk about as if we were to make a change, we would transition out over a specific amount of time. We don't have a large stockpile of that. There would, of course, be cost to changing some of our decals, and we could work that through, maybe, eliminating some out as we retire pieces of equipment or actually making the change. There would be some cost, but a lot of the paper products we would expend and use those before we moved on, not to waste any money. Okay.
Anyone else? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstentions? I'm abstaining. Motion is defeated. Moving on.
I move to accept the recommendation of the American Rescue Plan Act Committee to use approximately $5,000,000 $325,000 of ARPA funds allocated to the town of Watertown. Recommendation to acquire property on Main Street, Watertown, for increased downtown parking, pave roadways, and improved sidewalks on Main Street, Watertown, Oakville.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mark, do you want to speak on this?
So the ARPA committee, the chairman has discussed, made a recommendation to the town council to move over the full $5.3 million into those three projects. So just to bring your attention to how the committee came to that point and why we moved it to the council for this request is, as Mr. Mickle commented in public comment tonight, he talked about the plan of conservation and development. It is on our website, and if you take some time over the next couple of weeks and just kind of breeze through that, we spent a lot of time and energy through the Planning and Zoning Commission back in 2017 to put this plan of conservation and development in order. And if you go to like the third or fourth page in that plan of conservation and development, it's actually page 2.9, and I know you don't have it in front of you, but it listed development priorities for the town of Watertown. And those three top priorities were the development of Route 262 in the area down below by Route 8, the Main Street Watertown, and the Main Street Oakville. And they specifically discussed additional investments in gateway signage, streetscape improvements, and shared parking areas can position these areas for economic growth over the next decade. This is Watertown's opportunity to take this money and invest in ourselves, which I think is very important from an economic development standpoint. If we took that money and we took a portion of it to purchase a piece of property between the Woodruff Avenue area and the Echo Lake Road, we could develop parking for the downtown area businesses with the hopes that that will attract additional businesses into our area, or maybe even improve or fill the businesses that are not open, which will bring more tax dollars into Watertown. It'll also continue to encourage our community to embrace the walkabout communities, as we're talking about putting in our linear parks, and we're encouraging people to get down into our linear parks and walk and bike ride and share in our community. This can be developed right into that concept. So I talked tonight about the Steelbrook Greenway. We're moving forward on that. That runs from the Steel Beach Gym area all the way up down behind French Street. As you know, all those Main Street properties butt up against that linear park. There is opportunity for those businesses to open up to the rear portion of that walkway. It could drop off into the French Street, and if we invest some of this money in that downtown area, we could create a walkable, sustainable area that would encourage people to get out, walk around, which would hope attract businesses that would then in turn turn into tax dollars for us. Some of our results of our ARPA survey looked at us purchasing a fire truck as probably the number one idea from the people who responded to the survey. We had 540 respondents to the digital survey, and we had an additional 60 paper surveys that we received from our senior center. And the fire truck was the top vote getter for investing these monies into, using the ARPA monies to invest into. I think that's a mistake for us. This is a one-time shot for us to get this type of money that we could expense for other things that we would never, ever dream to do, because we just can't afford it. The fire truck can be bonded. We do have those two bonds that are dropping off in the next 2 years, $7.5 million in fiscal year 2023, and the second $7.5 million that will drop off in 2024. The fire truck could be bonded into that bonding package if we so choose. We could also push it out a couple years. I did speak with the fire chief, and I asked him very pointedly if we need a I think it's a 110-foot ladder truck. He says our ladder truck is in good shape, but if it breaks, he's concerned that we may not be able to get the parts to repair that item. Is it imperative that we replace that truck this year? It's not. We do have a secondary truck, and I want to say it's an 80-foot truck or a 90-foot truck. So we do have a secondary ladder truck. So I think we should push that purchase off and work in our economic development. Our ARPA committee actually put numbers to suggest to the town council. To be honest with you, I left those numbers off, because if we were to move forward on an acquisition of a piece of property, I didn't want the numbers floating out there for somebody to know exactly what we were willing to spend. So we added an executive session tonight to actually talk about the numbers. If you wanted to consider a third, and a third, it's roughly in the ballpark to invest in parking for the downtown area, improvement of our roadways, which is sorely needed, and then streetscapes and sidewalks. There will be some money left over for contingency, and we can then move forward from there. But I think the best use for the ARPA funds is to invest back into the town of Watertown.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from the town council? Yep, Denise. Turn your microphone on.
This is for the sidewalks and for parking. Why can't we take some of this money and reconfigure Main Street? That's the most important thing. We discussed this it's been on the table for a couple of years. We've had incidents and everything, and they said, we had the committee walk the street 2-3 times, and nothing's been done yet. So if it's not in the budget, why can't we take some of this money and rectify that problem before we make parking spaces?
It's part of the bigger picture. So we applied for 2 separate grants to address the RSA study on Main Street, Watertown. $3.5 million, I believe, was put in through Congresswoman Hayes' office, which there was no guarantees made, but we had a very favorable nod that there was a project that they thought was important to fund. And we also applied for $4 million through the state of Connecticut for the infrastructure bill, in an effort to focus some monies into fixing that area of Route 63, in which we had 2 fatalities over the last 5 or 6 years. So I think it's a bigger picture. I think over time we're going to have some answers on those grants shortly, and it'll give us the better information on how to actually apply this money. If you recall, in the budget, if it passes tomorrow, we have a pavement study analysis that we left in the budget. We'll have a company come in, study our roads, and they'll actually tell us where we need to work on our roads first. So again, that will take us probably 2 to 3 months to get that information. So I think as we move forward, this is a total big picture, and we're going to be looking at all these items to kind of pick them off. If one of the grants were to be awarded to us, and we approve this money to move forward on those 3 types of projects, we could then take that $1.3 million that we would put towards streetscapes and sidewalks, and we can move down to the Oakville section and get that done. So it's a moving target at this point, but we do need to start somewhere.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I would like to add that having a parking lot right on Main Street will make the road somewhat safer, just because right now there's so many cars that park on the road, some legally, some not so legally, and having more of that crowd in the parking lot would make a lot of those crosswalks that much safer, with or without any other reconfigurations. Any other comments or, yep.
I have a question about the process. So after this discussion, we'll vote on this before the executive session? And that vote will be a final decision on this money?
Correct. This is more or less to give direction to the town manager and Public Works to move forward. The executive session is more specifics on purchase of property. The only way the town could actually purchase the property is through discussion through executive session and a separate vote. So it couldn't, Mark couldn't just go and start signing contracts without our approval on that.
Through the chair, just recall, once we agree on this, we move forward. We still have to, I would still have to come back to the town council with a plan on how to enact all this. And that would have to go to public meeting anyways because of the size of the expenditure. So there are several steps down the road to have more public input, and you have the ability to kind of work your way through the process to ensure that this is the best thing for Watertown.
Anthony?
Yeah, just quickly,
Someone do their mic, so. Other one, next to it, there you go.
Okay. So to me, I think that, it certainly appears that, and I'm not necessarily against doing these things, but it appears we're putting the kind of the cart before the horse here, where it's like, okay, we're going to spend this money, but we don't know exactly. I would like to see line items of, this is what we're going to do step by step, this is how much it's going to cost, and then approve it as we go. I don't know, maybe it's going to only cost $4 million, maybe it'll cost $10 million. I can't agree to just say, okay, $5.3 million, we're going to just throw at these generic things, increasing downtown parking, paving roadways. I need more information.
I think the goal was to charge me to go out there and get you a plan. So it's basically just allocating these funds, saying, here's the placeholder for these funds. Get me a plan, bring it back to me, and then the council can look at that plan and say, okay, this is the approximate cost to take care of streetscapes, this is the approximate cost to do sidewalks, this is what the cost is to purchase a piece of property, if there's even a piece of property that's available. So I agree 100%. It's just the motion was written in a way to put this as a placeholder, to charge me as the town manager to move forward, to put a plan in place, and then bring it back to the town council for further approval.
Yeah, I think just the way the motion's written to me, it says, I move to accept the recommendation that we're going to use $5.3 million for those generic things. I'm okay with a motion that says that we agree that you can continue to inquire as to those things. But I just can't commit to spending $5.3 million on just these generic things. I'm redundant, I know.
My apologies. There's a sentence missing from there. That was, I specifically put in there on Friday, and it's not there today. So it was the specific sentence, and I don't know how that dropped off, but was to charge the town manager to come back with a full plan on the usage of the fund. And I would suggest that you add that to the motion, because that was the intent when I wrote that.
I will amend the motion to include the statement that we charge the town manager to come back with a specific plan and cost.
And I'll second that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I think that for me anyway, to vote for this, which I'm not necessarily against this, but I don't want to bound myself to voting that money needs to be used for that purpose, and that's certainly what this says. I need more information, so without more clarification, I can't vote to accept this generic recommendation. So I would vote against it for that reason, but not because I'm against these things.
Any other further comment?
Yeah, I do. Just, I'm a little, after Anthony's comments, I'm a little bit confused too. So if you go out, Mark, and you get these bids to do this work, and let's say, for example, the purchase the property is a lot more than we thought it was, do you are you gonna back off on some of the paving, or is that what you're trying to do? You're trying to come up with a format to spend the 5.325 on these items, but we're really not sure how much we're going to spend on each item.
I think that's a fair representation. I don't know who said it, but it's hard to put the cart before the horse. But unless you charge me to go out there and make these inquiries and inquire and see if we could even strike deals, how do we put a package together? Again, the motion's intent was to put a placeholder on this money under those three items, and then we come back with a full package, which the council, I mean, obviously, this is your money to expense. It's not mine. I think that you should have a plan in place, but I think you should have a total plan with numbers on it. And I think this is one way to get there.
Rich?
My concern is similar as well, and there are parts of this plan that I'm more interested in than the others. I mean, I think there's some that could be really monumental for the town, including the parking and the streetscapes and the sidewalks, but the paving is not something, I would like to see that done, but I'd like to see that done another way.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was thinking about the paving and that too. Figure, I know he's talking about the ladder truck going to be possibly bonded in another year or two, but it seems like every month the prices are going up. When the fire chief first came in, he said it was going to be $1 million for it. Now it's up to $1.5 million. I'm thinking by the time, if we ever go out and bond it at all, it'll probably be over $2 million the way it's going. I think we should use part of that money for that. And the $7,500 for the low SAP.
Anyone else? I just want to read the motion one last time before we do the vote. I move to accept the recommendation of the American Rescue Plan Act Committee to use approximately $5,325,000 of ARPA funds allocated to the town of Watertown. Recommendation to acquire property on Main Street, Watertown for increased downtown parking, pave roadways, and improve sidewalks on Main Street, Oakville, Watertown. The town manager shall develop a plan on the acquisition of property, implementation of roadway pavement projects, and sidewalk improvements for Main Street, Oakville, and Watertown. And as Mark mentioned, this motion is to more or less give him direction to put that plan together, put the dollars to these projects. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes, raise your hand. All opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $965 for police overtime. Funds received as reimbursement for participation in drug enforcement activities.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Item D, I move to approve the resolution authorizing the transfer of funds between line items for the fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
And just for the record, the transfer of funds is within the Park and Rec Department, pulling funds from a couple areas related to landscaping and the grounds to vehicle maintenance. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to set a special town meeting to be held on June 6, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. in the town council chambers to consider the appropriation of $110,100 from the general fund for police special duty services. Funds are offset by the revenue from vendors to which police services are supplied.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstention? Motion passes.
I move to set a special town meeting to be held on June 6, 2022, at 6:45 p.m. in the town council chambers to consider an appropriation in the amount of $204,235 from the general fund for emergency road repairs on Echo Lake Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes?
Yes, I thought the money was in this year's budget for Echo Lake Road. So if we're taking it from the general fund, is that money, where's that money in the budget going to be going?
There is no money in this year's budget to repair Echo Lake Road.
How about the
I thought there was.
budget that is going to be voted on tomorrow?
This was not submitted, no. When I got here last fall, we knew we had to go for an appropriation for this.
It was designed over the winter, it was recently advertised, and the bids closed on April 26th. So we had no idea what we were going to need at the time we put the budget together in December.
Anyone else? So remember, this vote is to send it to public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank
I
you.
move to enter into executive session. Items to be discussed are the sale of town property located at 37 DeForest Street and property acquisition utilizing approved ARPA funds. In attendance will be the town council members present, the town manager, and Sue, our assistant, our finance director and assistant town manager.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Enter into executive session.
Recording
Back in a little
stopped.
bit.